The Democratic Alliance controls only one municipality in Gauteng. It is called Midvaal. Last week, the Municipal Demarcation Board announced that the merger of Mfuleni Local Municipality and Midvaal Local Municipality would go ahead, meaning that the DA was almost surely going to lose the one municipality it governs in this province. The DA now says the merger is politically motivated and was engineered to steal the one municipality it runs in Gauteng. Are they just being crybabies? My guest today to discuss this issue is Landiwe Mahlangu, the chairperson of the Demarcation Board. Mr. Mahlangu, the DA accuses you of being a puppet of the ANC because it says the ANC wanted to take it out of Midvaal and therefore instructed you to make sure that there was no Midvaal in the 2016 election. Are you a puppet of the ANC as the Demarcation Board?
No, I'm not a puppet of actually anyone. We had actually made a decision on about 147 of the cases that were before the board. Amongst those were actually, you call them merging, but we prefer to call it amalgamating, municipalities in the areas where we think the combination of those would actually strengthen those municipalities to be able to perform better. In the case in point, we actually have come to the conclusion that the areas covered by Midvaal, Mfuleni and Sedibeng are really one economy, and therefore they are the area that actually deserve to have a municipality suited for an area that is starting to exhibit features of high urbanization, high density. So the factors that we take into account has got nothing to do who is in control. On
the other hand, many people would say, okay, that sounds like a very fair, objective process. However, you look at Metsimaholo, where an attempt to amalgamate was met by serious violence on the parts of some members of the community. And you said, oops, we're not going to do that. Now, the conditions in that particular area were, in fact, according to the DA and others, that was more suited to an amalgamation than Midvaal, Sedibeng, and Mfuleni. Why didn't you do in Metsimaholo what you're doing in Midvaal, Sedibeng, and Mfuleni?
Metsimaholo, the proposal that we had before the board was to actually combine it with, Ngwate, which is Parys. We made an investigation on that. We also had a number of studies that we've done into that. We concluded as the board that such a measure.
No, you concluded after the violence happened. You didn't conclude before that.
No, it has got nothing to do with the violence. Remember is that we only made those decisions long after the violence has actually taken place. It was really unfortunate that the violence had to take place, but we followed our process, and in any event, remember, part of the reason why there was such an action that actually took place, which I think we deeply regret, was precisely because it is the board that actually brought into the open to say we have this proposal. So, which is actually a testimony of the fact that had it not been for the board.
So in Metsimaholo, the people reacted with violence. In Midvaal, people reacted by saying, we have a country, we have a board, which is an independent institution, and 9,800 people send you a petition saying, Mr. Mahlangu and your board, we don't want Midvaal to go there. And you did it anyway. Should they have resorted to violence to get heard by you?
No, we don't think violence is the best way to actually solve the situation. Let me talk about the 10,000 or so. Those were the objections that were actually allowed as part and parcel of our process, which is basically the last opportunity to give people an opportunity to actually voice their views in terms of, before the board makes a final decision. Remember, in between those two municipalities, you've got about 800,000 people. I mean, Midvaal has got about 100,000 people, and Mfuleni about 7,000 people.
But let's be fair here. You got for all the amalgamations and all the issues you had on the table over the past year, you had 9,880, I think, objections or contributions.
Yeah.
9,700 came from Midvaal. Now, it may be that there are 100,000 people or however many thousands, but these are people saying, organized enough to say, no, do not do this.
The volume really doesn't count, Justice. What actually counts is an extent to which people actually make their views as according to the criteria that we do. And then we're very specific. We said, if you are aggrieved by the determination of the board, you are expected to actually make your views according to the criteria. Much as indeed, 10,000, which was a record in terms of the board history in one particular case. But
you ignored that history, yeah?
No. Legislation actually compels us to look at all objections, and this is what we did. And I can say here that most of those objections were just more one-liners, and some of them really just simply, did not carry the weight because they did not actually, address, the kind of criteria that we're actually, looking at.
I have to tell you that I look at Midvaal. The Gauteng provincial government says Midvaal has the best quality of life in this province. Heineken, or rather the bottlers of Heineken, Sidibeng, go and set up a thing there. Oprah Winfrey says, my school is going to Midvaal. All these things that are supposedly happening, employment and so forth. I don't quite see what criteria you used, and maybe you could give us your reason why this one municipality is not being taken up and say, this is what you can do, copy these guys. Instead you're saying, no, we're going to amalgamate you with these other laggards.
That is precisely one of the criteria. The criteria basically said as soon as an area, when I say an area, remember as a board, when we look at these municipalities, we are blind in terms of the current borders. We look at the functionality of the area. And then when they say once an area starts to actually experience growth, once as an area starts to actually experience high population density, and there's a clear intensive movement of goods and services amongst different co-constituents part of the area, and there's very clear interdependence. Legislation says such an area must be a metropolitan municipality.
So
remember, these are
a victim of its own success. The DA did such a good job that it must now get out.
That is precisely why you need a body like the board, because we're looking at long term. You are right in a way. I think our experience is that politicians tend to be short term and very parochial. We're looking at long term and ensuring the sustainability of that institution, irrespective as to who could be in charge. So yes, it's more what happened in Midvaal. If what you're stating is correct, it's an argument for, not against, the metropolitanization.
Then here's an area, Malamulele, which has over the past week and over the past 10 years, in fact since 2001, has experienced sporadic violence. The people are saying we are not getting the development that we need, and you have not. In fact, in your statement, you say it's politically sensitive, we're not touching it. That's where you should be going.
What we said in Malamulele, remember, the case is quite different. You've got a municipality that has been in existence for the last 12 years, in fact, for as long as the new dispensation of the municipalities have actually been there, which is Thulamela. The proposal, as we understand it, seeks to actually basically separate that municipality into basically what is called Malamulele and a section of Thulamela. In our view, such a proposal just totally stand against what actually why municipalities
but the people of Malamulele are saying Thulamahashe has done nothing for us, and so we need our own municipality so that development people, our leaders, can look at us and say this is where it's needed. There's no delivery.
Well, it's a very strange logic, because if Thulamela actually cannot deliver in its totality, and it's the second, if you like, biggest municipality in that area, I doubt whether breaking it up would actually make it deliver better. As a matter of fact, what could possibly happen, you would have two municipalities that are both weak. you might end up possibly with double the problem. That's our contention.
When I look at your reasoning, firstly on the Midvaal issue, the Mahlangu issue, and now on the Malamulele issue, all your decisions accord with decisions of the African, or rather, precepts of the African National Congress, the ANC. It just sounds to me, back to that first accusation by the DA, that you're carrying out ANC instructions here. Are you a member of the ANC personally?
No, I'm not a member of the ANC, and I'm not quite aware of any, precepts of the ANC, with regard, to that matter. But what is actually very clear, and I'm not quite sure what is their decision on Thulamela, but we are actually guided by the criteria that is actually in the Act. Basically, if you like, remember, our objective is to ensure that these municipalities are configured in a manner that they perform better than they are. You would see that throughout, and in terms of our objective, in terms of what we are doing, is to really ensure that the test of what we have done would be found when we actually evaluate these municipalities after 5 years.
Mr. Landiwe Mahlangu, we have so much more to discuss, but we've run out of time. Thanks so much, and good luck in your work.
Thank you.
After the break, our winner. After the break, our winner and loser of the week. Stay with us.
News that moves. ENCA.com.